everyone, it's Sharonda from Pay or Wait, and today I'm going to be reviewing Claws Season 3, Episode 5, Daddy Was a Rolling Stone. And so we see that the episode opens up with Desna and Roller, who are basically, they've been laying low. She's been tending to her man's needs and stuff, and so they start off having this conversation, and Roller's just like, I want to move in. And then she was just like, hold up, sir, like, chill out for a moment. But when Roller was just like, let's classy up the place a little bit and add some Versace drapes, I was just like, sir, having all Versace don't mean that your place is classy, okay? Like, that, it doesn't always go over well. And seeing how your fashion statements have been lately, because I hate that he's gone away from his suits and stuff back to his little Versace drawers that he be wearing every single episode. I hope that you have a different one for every day of the week and you washing them every single day, because if not, that's nasty. But he's just basically like, hey, like, I want to do this for real. We love each other. And she was just like, every man that I've ever been with, like, they betrayed me, they left me, starting with my father. And so I thought that was very interesting, because the episode is called like Daddy Was a Rolling Stone, but we really talk about how, issues in relationships, trust issues, and failure to being able to commit, how it can lead back to issues from childhood. And more importantly, in Desna's situation, is her dad leaving her. That's really affected her since she was a young child, and she's always felt as though she's only been able to depend on herself to take care of her brother. And so we see how this kind of led her to this crossroads that she is now with Roller, and why she can't fully open up to him. We thought that we were getting there when they told each other that they love them, but she's still having these doubts, just because 2 years ago they were trying to kill each other. And so I thought it was so funny how they did this whole little like 90s throwback, this little rap video in the intro of the episode. I was just like, Roller, you need to work on your rapping skills. I thought you was gonna be a little better, sir, but I still thought it was cute. Desna with her little 90s haircut. Everybody had that haircut back in the day, but I thought it was still cute and still funny. So also too, I have to say, when she said, do you even use Lawry's, I was like, but she got a point there. What type of seasoning sauce you use? Better yet, what type of hot sauce you use? Because I know some people talk about, oh, I use Red Hot, or I use Texas Pete. Excuse me, the only hot sauce that matters is Louisiana hot sauce. And also too, I'll even throw a Crystals up in there. But them other ones, they ain't no real hot sauce. So we see that she goes to the shop, and Mac and Melba have been sending muffins, basically saying, hey, you stay away from us, we gonna stay away from you. So they've been sending that every single day, and we see that Polly's like kind of looking like, well, she's just like, I ain't got nothing to do with them. I'm so happy to be done with the casino. Polly having her little guilt because her and Joe, they got something extra going on. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So she's telling them about what's happened with her and Roller, and then they tell them about how, like, yeah, there's been studies to show that people who have daddy issues, they have issues in their relationships as well, because they haven't dealt with the past. And so they tell her that it would be a good idea if she actually goes to talk to her dad, which we now know that he is alive, but she's told Dean that he was probably dead somewhere. And so she was just like, I don't really want to do it. Like, what would I say to him? He's like a big time architect. He forgot about us. He's never tried to come look for us. So why do I need to go talk to my father? But I thought it was very interesting how Roller told us probably, well, after Roller said that's some white people stuff to go address your feelings and let go of the past, but he does say, like, given everything that his dad was responsible of doing to his mother, that if he had the opportunity to talk to him again, that he wouldn't give that chance up. And so he encourages Desna to kind of deal with the issues with her father, not necessarily for his own selfish reasons, but he really does feel that that is something that will help her heal and just make her feel better. It'll be a huge weight that's lifted off of her. And so we see that she actually does go to confront her father. He's on site at a project, and he has this weird reaction. First, he doesn't recognize her, and she was kind of just like, you really don't recognize me? And then she basically tells him, like, I'm your daughter. And he has a weird reaction, basically just saying, like, I can't do this right now. I'm at work. Like, you can't be showing up to someone's job. And so he basically says, can you please leave? Which Desna is emotionally reacts to it. She's sad. She's just like, I don't know why I even tried to do this in the first place. And she tries to reach out to Dean, but Dean is still stuck at the casino. We saw that Virginia kind of confronts him like, you haven't been home. You've been sleeping here. You've been staying here. Mac has basically been footing his bill, allowing him to stay and play Mahjong. He's doing the tournament. And so Virginia keeps trying to get through to Dean to get Dean to notice her. And then he tells her that she's being needy. And I was just like, sir, why would you say that to her? And so she gets upset, which I feel like we're just setting this up for her to go and be with Jen's baby daddy, EJ. So she leaves, and we see that Mac gifts Dean with this ivory mahjong set that he said was passed down in his family. And so we see that Mac is trying to grow closer to Dean. And so initially we think that this is part of some evil scheme that Mac and Melba have going on. But we see as Melba confronts Mac and just says, you need to leave him alone. We're done with Desna. I don't want to bring her into any other stuff. Like, you need to let that go. We can see that Mac actually truly, genuinely cares for Dean, and that he wants to help mentor Dean. He wants to, really, like, it's very, legitimate of him wanting to spend more time with him. He actually enjoys Dean's company. And so this has issues towards the end of the episode, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But let me go ahead and get Bryce and Uncle Daddy's situation out of the way. They're probably two of the weakest characters this season, which there's so much craziness that was happening with Uncle Daddy, especially when he was in charge, when he was the boss. But I just feel as though the writers don't truly know what to necessarily do with his character now that he's not in power, now that he's not trying to battle Desna for the top spot. So Bryce is still doing his self-help, trying to get people off of drugs. He had his new little book that he had called Get It. And so he's trying to talk to the people, but when Uncle Daddy walks in with Brenda, Jen's mom, Bryce is just like, dude, I told you this is gonna cause issues in my marriage. I can't be like trying to help her. She can't be here. But when Toby was like, Zaddy, you're here, I thought that was so funny. And then Brenda was like, is that a little girl's bathing suit that you have on? I was just like, Jen mama don't disappoint with all these like rude comments that she has with different people. But I can tell that Toby's a little bothered. We can see that Uncle Daddy tells Brenda that she reminds him of his wife. And so Toby doesn't like that. You can tell that they're kind of getting closer together. He called her his little angel. And so he basically gives Bryce an ultimatum like, hey, if you can't deal with Brenda being here trying to get help, then you're fired. And so Bryce leaves. And so I'm interested to see how all of that is going to really play out with Toby, because I feel like he's going to try to get rid of her. But in the meantime, Brenda has an idea to introduce Virginia as the new healer. She has her little seer powers now. And so she's actually doing a really good job, which Bryce has an issue with because he wasn't expecting them to find someone else. And so then he gets this idea after he's talking in the shop, venting that he basically they tell him that he needs to get his wife to make up with her mother, so then there won't be any conflict of interest anymore. And so as he tries to stage his intervention, he tricks Jen by saying that she has some type of cheesecake. They got free cheesecake there. And then they kind of try to start this intervention. Uncle Daddy isn't helping at all. But when Virginia gets involved, further cementing that she's actually good at what she does, they make up. And I thought it was interesting how they kind of talk about they're reliving this theme of how you have childhood trauma, you have betrayal between your parents, and how that leads to issues, and how she had to bring up a childhood memory of the first little boy who betrayed her, and how her mother kind of beat his ass for embarrassing her daughter, how that was the way for them to basically reconcile and make up with one another. So I love how they tie this theme in with like all of the different characters. I thought that was absolutely cool. But I had to talk about Jen for a moment, because when Quiet Ann was doing the girl's feet, the white girl who was basically acting black, and she had her skin was really tan. I thought it was very interesting. I love how they kind of did this comedy, but they're also showcasing how, in the news, we talked about these Instagrammers who are white, who are they wear darker makeup, wear makeup to make it look like they're more exotic, more black, and how they appropriate, different cultures, and how the girl was talking back. She was like, Kurt. Trying to do that. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, y'all. I screamed like that. But I'm really proud of myself for being able to do that. But how she was talking, and even Quiet Ann made a joke about Rachel Dozell, how do you say that girl name? The white girl who was like black and then nobody knows she was really white. And the girl, it just totally went over her head. And so Jen basically grabbed her out, threw her out. And then Jen was like, I'm so sick of white people doing this stuff. And then she was like, well, I do got my edges laid. And she's like, I do got my baby hairs on today. She's like, my edges. And then she was like, damn, am I a part of the problem? And they was like, no, girl, you invited to the cookout. You okay? Because at least you understand that there is an issue. And that's the first step. that's all you have to do is recognize that there is an issue and there's a way that you can play into that and how you can stop that narrative. So I was like, thank you, Jen, for being self-reflective and understanding how all of this works. But I did appreciate the writers throwing that in there. They turn it kind of into comedy, but I love how they kind of showcase a big issue that is happening today. So I'm gonna stop talking about that, y'all. I'm sorry, but we have to talk about Polly and Joe. So Polly and Joe, they still extorting different companies, like these stores around the area, taking money. And so I love how he's still trying to get Polly to show him the real her. But when she was like, take your dick out, I said, well, cut to it then, Polly. I see you. Just tell him go ahead and do what he needs to do. That's what you're here for. And so he's like, no, I want to see the real you. And so she tells him that she's like really falling for him. And basically, she doesn't feel broken when she's around him, and that scares her. And then he tells her, like, you know, I have feelings for you too. Like, I'm falling for you. And so she's guilty because she's hiding this from Desna, and then he's hiding it from Mac and Melba. But then the accountant comes in, and she basically like, I know what y'all doing. I'm gonna blow all your mess up if you don't give me my cut, okay? And then she talked about, I guess her and Joe was smashing, or she was like in love with him, and that's why she's really upset with Polly. And so she basically tell her, give me my money, or y'all gonna be dead, because I'm gonna tell Mac and Melba what's going on. And so that scares her, but she tells Joe what's happening. He's like, I'll take care of it. And so the girl texts her, and when she arrives to her house, she sees that she's hanging, so she's dead. And so she goes to Joe to try to talk to him about it, and she was just like, he's like, well, she was suffering from depression. And she was like, well, was she suffering from depression too? And he was like, basically admitting that he killed, you know, both women. And so she's just like, well, what if I'm the person that's in the way? You know, since you get rid of people so easily. And so I thought it was interesting because we were introduced to his childhood trauma of how his parents left him in the cabin by himself. And, you know, kind of how he really doesn't understand that some of the things that he does is wrong, because it's like trying to get what he wants. And so I thought it was interesting how she kind of is repulsed by him, because he's always saying, I want you to show me the true you, but he's showing her the true version of himself, and he's okay with it, but it doesn't seem that she's okay. So I'm interested to see how all of that is going to play out. But we do see later on in the episode that Desna's dad does come back to try to talk to her. And basically he says he wants to have a relationship with Dean. And she's like, he's not talking to her. We saw Desna try to go to the hotel the first time to get Dean to leave, that he's not good, that Mac and Melba aren't good people. But Mac had her escorted off the premises. Dean wasn't having it. He was just like, I like my relationship with Mac. Like, I'm not leaving. And so they later, his dad ends up going to the tournament. He enters the tournament and he's talking to Dean, and we see that Mac gets jealous and tells Joe to basically go figure out who the heck he is. He doesn't like him trying to talk to Dean. And then Dean has an episode because he's talking to him and he ends up losing the game. And so it just has a really bad effect. And, you know, he basically leaves. But Desna and his dad, they do come back to let her know, like, this is your father. You need to come with us. And his dad finds a way to relate to him because his dad is an architect, and we know that Dean likes to draw. And so he invites them to come to, like, this grand opening of this building that he was helping restore. But in the meantime, before that could happen, we see that Mac goes to her dad and basically tries to pay him to stay away from Dean. He refuses, and so he goes to Melba and just like, I want Dean all to myself. And she was just like, what you want is what you get. And we see that their dad is having a cup of coffee, and he's a recovering addict. And Melba goes and drops her purse, and while he's picking up her stuff, she puts some drugs in his system, which causes him to embarrass himself and Desna and Dean and Virginia and Roller at the event that he invited them to. And so this triggers Dean, because Dean is just like, you said that he wasn't on drugs anymore. You know, I took time from my tournament trying to basically reconnect, and he's up to these same shenanigans. I don't want anything to do with it. And so Dean leaves. Virginia's trying to talk to him, and then Dean gets upset and he just leaves the car and just basically says he's going back to the casino, which leaves Virginia just sitting there, you know, crying and upset. And then we find out when he comes back to talk to, their dad comes to talk to Desna the next day, he tells her what happened. He tells her about Mac, and then she realizes that Melba is the one who actually poisoned him and put drugs into his coffee. And so she was just like, I had it. I'm sorry for everything that's happened. And he's like, girl, what kind of mess are you into? And so she goes home. Roller's like, what is going on? Desna tells him what's happening. And then she was like, I'm sick of this. First they came for Dean. They tried to kill me and you. And now they got my daddy? That's where we cross the line. I ain't gonna stay. I'm sorry, I'm just choking. I'm not gonna stay away. I'm sick of this. This has to come to an end. She get her gun out. She like getting suited and booted. And then she was like, I'm finna go get him. And then it just go off. And I was like, y'all, you can't leave me like that. But I was wondering, because towards the beginning of the episode, I was just like, I don't know necessarily how I'm gonna feel about this season if it just goes to Desna trying to lay low, be in love with Roller. Because I do feel as though she needs to address the conflict with Mac and Melba, so I'm happy that they're kind of getting that started up again. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just choking today. But I'm interested to see how this plays off next weekend. Because he was like, Roller's like, you gonna go all Rambo up in there? And she was like, watch me. So I'm happy to see how all of this is going to play out for next week, because I wanted there to be a little bit more spice happening like towards this season. But we saw that Quiet Ann is pregnant. Y'all guessed it. She is pregnant after she had sex with old dude. I knew that had to be for a reason. So we see that she's pregnant. She's about to tell them, but that's when Desna's dad came in. So I'm interested to see if she's going to keep the baby, how this is going to work with her relationship, how the girls are going to react to it. I just find all of this to be so entertaining to watch, just to see how all of this kind of breaks down. But I did like the theme of the daddy issues, dealing with childhood trauma, how that can lead to some issues that you may have in relationships, you know, as you get older, how you view men, how you view women. And so I like how they kind of tied that in and really brought everyone's kind of backstories and tied it all into like this main theme that they have for the episode. But I like how the episode ended. I mean, at first I liked the stuff with Desna and her father and things like that. I was more so like how Dean and his dad interacted with each other. They really understand one another, from an architecture and drawing and stuff like that. How you can see how his dad does influence some of the things that Dean does like to do. I'm interested to see where this Polly and Joe, I feel like he's going to get creepy stalkerish, going to try to come after her. But overall, I mean, it was a decent episode. I hope that they figure out what to do with Uncle Daddy and Bryce's storyline, because it's kind of just like, I don't know if you really need them as characters anymore. I'm not sure how they're going to try to turn this around, but I'll keep it going. But those are my quick thoughts on Claws Season 3, Episode 5, Daddy Was a Rolling Stone. As always, my name is Sharona from Pay Your Weights, and if you like what you saw today, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this video with your friends, and make sure you hit that notification bell. And I love you guys 3000. I'll see you soon.